from the belt to the plate. A swing and a miss, and that's the winner. That's the winner. A World Series winner for the Cardinals. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard. Go crazy. Swinging a long one into left field. Adios, goodbye, and maybe that's the winner. A 3-run homer by Clark, and the Cardinals lead by the score of 7-5, and they may go to the World Series on that one, folks.
What a team. What a ride. The Cardinals are world champs in 2011.
Welcome to That's a Winter podcast. I am Ryan Jenkins. With me, as always, is Josh Brown over there. And tonight with us is Kyle Peach. Welcome, everybody, to the show. We're having some streaming issues also on Twitter, it looks like, too. So, Josh, if you could check that out, too, please. So we're going to break things down. Welcome to the new year. This is our first show of the new year. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the news of what's going on today, which was Scott Rolen, obviously, was elected into the Hall of Fame yesterday. We're going to talk about Chip Caray being the new voice of the St. Louis Cardinals. We're going to do a winter warm-up wrap-up from all three of us being at winter warm-up last weekend, 2 weekends ago. And we'll talk a little bit about the Bally Sports debacle that's going on. But welcome in Kyle Peach and Josh Brown now. So let's get right into the Scott Rolen stuff. So Scott Rolen got elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame last night. Our video that we posted of his family, him telling his parents, was just awesome. I don't know if they still live in Jasper, Indiana, or if that's in Bloomington where Rolen lives now, but you could see how proud his parents were, and it's a long time coming, 76%. Kyle, it's one of the players that we grew up watching, obviously. I'm going to see a lot of times from Indiana, where I grew up. He was born in the same city I was. Kyle, what do you think about him finally getting the call to the Hall?
Well, it's been a long wait for sure.
Sorry,
Obviously,
my bad. Now go.
all right. Hey, it's been a long haul and a long wait for Scott Rolen, and probably the most profound thing for me is that this is the first real time we've seen a member of the 06-11 championship teams from St. Louis make it into the Hall of Fame. He's the first one to get there. And so that was kind of the really profound moment for me as a fan. Obviously, there's been a little bit of flack and pushback saying he's more average than Hall of Fame worthy, but obviously those folks just relying on the numbers and not seeing necessarily the non-stat line stats that Scott Rolen put up playing third base in St. Louis.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's not surprising, right? If it didn't happen this year, I think we were all pretty confident it was going to happen next year. 76%. Well, he got in by 1%.
I think it was 5 total votes, is what they said.
Right.
He's calculated.
Very minuscule margin. I mean, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's a doubt when you combine the power numbers with his defense, right? Who's it remind you of today with the Cardinals? They might have another guy that's going to be there soon, Nolan Arenado. We've seen some tweets kind of going around at, Scott Rolen's numbers, especially offensively going in, and even Arenado's right there. Arenado's sitting at 299 home runs, as is. Scott Rolen's got 316. So I think, and you look at the defense, those two very similar. Arenado, I think, has already got actually a couple more Gold Gloves already than Rolen, right? So Cardinals very well might have another guy on a Hall of Fame path already at third base, which is pretty cool to think about. But Scott Rolen, I mean, he's synonymous with all those big postseason moments, and that's what I think about with him, especially in 06 when they won it all. He was right there in the thick of that. So, yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I know there was a lot of debate around him, probably not as much scrutiny with is he a Hall of Famer as there is with Yachty for some reason. Maybe people think that Rolen's offensive numbers aren't quite up to keep as what you would expect from a Hall of Famer, but I know there's not a lot of third basemen in the Hall of Fame. So I think he deserved to be in. What do you think, Ron?
Well, yeah, I thought Scott Rolen was the best third baseman I thought I would ever see in my lifetime. Watching him play the way he played defense was was the best, and then Nolan Arenado comes around, and now it's like he's not even going to be the best St. Louis Cardinal to play third base, which is quite crazy to think about. I think he was more than necessary for him to get in. It was definitely where he needed to be. I understand the debate, and I saw one today was Dale Murphy. Like, well, if Scott Rolen's in, then Dale Murphy needs to be in, and the numbers were very similar, and actually Dale Murphy's were all better. But I think the big part of it is the Gold Gloves and how well you play defense. Now, I think there's, I want to say, I don't know if this is accurate. I think 18 total third basemen ever in the Hall of Fame. And so whenever it's underrepresented like that, Scott Rolen is the top 10 best third baseman of all time, then yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I get that his numbers don't pan out next to some of the others out there in different positions, but people talk about Keith Hernandez, how good of a first baseman he was, one of the best ever with like 11 or 12 Gold Gloves. Well, that's not a high defensive, position like third base is. And I think that's the real difference of how good Scott Rolen was on the defensive side.
Yeah, I've got it pulled up here. Rolen is the 15th third baseman inducted to the Hall of Fame. Looks like I'm looking
15th. So yeah,
looking at the research here by Baseball Almanac. Shows him here. So, and you look at his numbers compared to some of the other guys. I mean, the high end, obviously, like the top of the gold standard, really, when you think about Hall of Fame third baseman, is Mike Schmidt. I don't think there's nobody's going to contest that, especially offensively. The guy had 548 home runs. Eddie Matthews, 512. Those are the only two guys in the 500 range of third baseman home runs. Chipper, of course, you've got at 468. But then after that, I mean, it's a lot of the 300s. Ron Santo, 342. George Brett, 317. So it's not like his offensive numbers are that far off from the other guys, except for the top two, that you think of when you think of like big time, Hall of Fame third baseman in Mike Schmidt and Eddie Matthews. Yeah, I mean, I think the offense coupled with his Gold Gloves and his defense is like, he was that complete player. He was, I mean, we had an Arenado before Arenado was that. And Nolan's talked about how, like, I watched him. I idolized Rolen. That was a guy that he watched and idolized. And I think what struck me watching some of the clips that were playing on MLB Network and some of the highlights from his career, and Nolan Arenado's talked about this, but I forget about it being a teenager back then.
Right.
You just sometimes you forget about how great the goodness was that you were watching. But man, he was so big. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
And Arenado's talked about that. To be as agile as he was and to get to the balls that he got to, like, pretty cool to see on those clips because he's a big dude, man. I mean, he's a big guy.
Well, so let me ask you guys this now. So there's a great debate on what cap, if any, that he will wear going into the Hall of Fame.
Shouldn't be a debate.
So he played more games for the Phillies, and also, by the way, the Hall of Fame decides what cap goes in.
With input from the player,
input.
right? They listen to them. Yeah.
There was people today talking about they thought if they were alive, they get to pick, and if they're not with us anymore, then the Hall decides. It is the Hall decides with input from the player of which cap, and Rolen has said he's not sure which one he would wear going into it. He played more games with the Phillies, and he has a little similar numbers between the two. I can tell you he will not be wearing a Reds hat or a Jays hat going into the Hall. But do you think he'll wear Cardinals, Phillies, or none?
Kyle, I'll let you go first. What do you think?
Well, I want him to wear a Cardinals. I think Cardinals is the right choice. I think he could potentially go with no cap because you don't want to tick anybody off, cancel culture, and he's no longer welcome in Philadelphia if he wears a Cardinal hat. I don't know that that's the case, but and I wonder truly how much of a factor the Hall of Fame's decision is in the decision. When you read between the lines, it used to be the player's decision to make not that long ago. And then all of a sudden the Hall of Fame says, well, we're going to make the decision with player input. I think that flip was made because of criticism and backlash to players who picked for fans the wrong hat. And so maybe it is, in fact, a Rolen decision, and the Hall of Fame is giving the players that go in the cop-out of saying, well, it's the Hall of Fame selection with input from the player. I think this is one of those classic cases of really being a tough call. Obviously, as Cardinal fans, we want it to be a Cardinal cap. I mean, he won a lot of hardware in St. Louis and no doubt a World Series championship to go along with it. But, truth be told, it's probably a split down the middle. And when that kind of thing happens, maybe there's no logo on that cap. He did, however, grow up in Cardinal country, and that's where he's from. So there's that too.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, obviously, like, the Cardinals fan in us has the bias of, well, duh. Like, why would you not? Why would you not go in with the STL, on your Hall of Fame cap? But it is very close. I mean, yeah, he played 7 years with the Phillies, 6 with the Cardinals, almost identical numbers, honestly, almost identical lines. When you look at batting average, 282 Philly, 286 St. Louis, 373 OVP in Philly, 370 in St. Louis. The OPS plus is almost exactly the same. Obviously, he played, 100, well, almost 200 plus more games in Philadelphia, so a little bit more home runs. But, I mean, I think the tiebreaker here, if you're going to go with most impact on your career, has got to be the World Series win in 06, right? He got that with the Cardinals, did not have that in Philadelphia. But I agree with you, Kyle. I think it is harder probably for him to pick than others because 1997 Rookie of the Year with the Phillies, right? Philadelphia drafted him. They gave him a shot. He was Rookie of the Year in 97, got his first Gold Glove in 98. He was, all-star with them in the MVP conversation a few times, but not to the extent that he was with us. I mean, with the Cardinals, you've got, from 03 to 06, 4 straight all-star games, 4 straight or 3 Gold Gloves in those 4 seasons, 4th in the MVP voting in 04. So the peak of his career, I would say, was in St. Louis. I don't think there's too much of an argument there in terms of accolades, achievements, and just the peak of what he achieves, especially winning a World Series, which is the ultimate goal, right?
Right. And let's also talk about that he's not liked in Philadelphia. He was booed relentlessly after he left. He booed
everybody.
He asked for the trade out of there. He's not wanted there. Was never wanted there. There was even a tweet from a Philly fan that said, "I hope he goes into the Hall as a Phillies hat so we can all go there and boo him." That's what
crazy.
They think about. That they didn't like him because he didn't want to be there. Also, he's in the Hall of Fame of the St. Louis Cardinals. He's not in the Phillies. They have like a wall of fame type thing where they put notable players on. He's not even listed as that. So if he's not even revered in that category for the Phillies, I don't understand why they would even want him whenever all they want to do is boo and not like him that way. That's my 2 cents on it. And I think, obviously, he won a World Series with the St. Louis Cardinals. And to be honest, he probably wouldn't be he would be more of a question to be a red jacket guy with the Cardinals if he hadn't won. That's what we've talked about, Arenado and Goldie. These dudes, you have to win something to be of relevance to the St. Louis Cardinals. If you're not, then you have to have extremely good numbers. And that's where he was only in with the Cardinals for 5 years. How many years do you have to play with the Cardinals to be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame? Is it 4? It's not.
I think it's 4 or 5. He was 6 with St. Louis. Is what I see here.
6 years. Okay,
so first year was 02, so 02 through 2007. But
see,
05, 2007, some injuries there.
And I'm too young maybe to remember him in a Phillies uniform. Now, by too young, I didn't pay attention to the Phillies in those years.
Right.
Not that I watch every single game of baseball I can of all teams right now. But back then, that wasn't as easy, and I don't remember Scott Rolen until he became a St. Louis Cardinal. Now, Kyle, a little older, maybe you remember Scott Rolen as a Philly.
I do, but not nearly to the level that I do remember him as a Cardinal. I will say, growing up over in the Evansville, Indiana area, he's from Jasper, Indiana. So he's a guy that I think I knew because he was
Local, yeah.
less than an hour away from where I'm living. So there was that. But it was a guy that we were very excited to see sign as a Cardinal when he came to St. Louis because of the local connection and the fact that he grew up in Cardinal country. Certainly was an interesting thing. And Ryan, something I'm just now kind of processing as we're talking about this is what kind of a cool moment there will be very, very soon in St. Louis, where another number is retired on the wall in St. Louis.
Yeah, somebody talked about that the other I saw on Twitter last night. That they should just not even redo the wall until number 4 and number 5 are going to get added to it. But there's other guys that are in the Hall of Fame and with the Cardinals that aren't retired numbers.
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point.
So at what point do they get to be retired numbers and in the Hall of Fame? That I don't know the answer. So there's other guys that are not on that wall and retired numbers that are in the Hall of Fame and played for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm interested in how that gets decided. I think a lot of it obviously has to do with on the field, the achievements in the organization. but off the field too, and in the community. Now I don't know how much Rolen has been involved in St. Louis post career there, but I think if I had to bet right now, the next two numbers would be retired if the Cardinals are going to be 5 and 4.
Right.
I mean, and that's just, it seems, I don't think there's a whole lot of debate there in terms of like the achievements and what they've put back into the community.
And do they wait until they're in the Hall of Fame in 5 years? Like, when does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because we all speculated it was going to happen on the last game of the season at Busch Stadium this past
Didn't happen
season.
that quickly.
Right.
So actually, at winter warm-up, Mosaic was asked about this in just a general Q&A. They did a couple things with him, and somebody asked that, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "I, would definitely imagine that
That's going to happen.
That's going to happen." He said, "It's probably not going to happen this year or next year, but yeah, it's gotta happen down the road." So I'm not sure the threshold of that. It's interesting to think about. I don't know the timeline that they wait to go with. I would think it makes more sense to wait till they're actually, they've been inducted to the Hall of Fame. They've given their speech, but I guess it's the Cardinals, Cardinals' decision there.
And, the other part we talk about, maybe it's about the hat. Well, Tony La Russa is not a St. Louis Cardinal hat in the Hall of Fame, and he's retired number as well. So not 100%. So this past season, the Cardinals Hall of Fame weekend, where Matt Holliday was inducted, Scott Rolen was supposed to come and sign. And I have a beautiful 06 World Series jersey. Has the World Series patch on it. Has the 2006 new ballpark, Busch Stadium, opening season patch on it. And last minute, Scott Rolen had to decline out of it because of family issues. Something with the family. So I knew at that point I needed to get that jersey signed because I knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer, whether this year or the next year. It was trending that direction. Now I have this jersey that's unsigned. What is it going to take me now to get it signed, and how much now is it going to cost me to actually get it signed, because he's going to write Hall of Fame 2023 next to it.
It ain't going to be cheap.
I mean, he lives here. He lives an hour away from where we are now.
Just go stalk him at IU.
Yeah, well, supposedly, I do know some people there. I've sent texts trying to get him on the show.
He's pretty private, right?
Yes,
from what I gather.
He's very private, but he goes to all of his kids' games in Bloomington, Indiana. He goes, he sits, and he watches like a normal dude. At all of his daughter is in high school, very good basketball athlete, and softball and volleyball. Son plays baseball, obviously, as well. And he's like 15. But they're very good athletes, and he just goes and goes about his business and supports them. So
what you're telling me is that the most coveted schedule in all of sports right now in Cardinal Nation is the Pee Wee Little League schedule of the Rolen family.
Right. If we might just need to go stop by, say, "Hey, here, sign this jersey for me," while he's watching his kids play. But also, Rolen was Mr. Baseball in Indiana in, I can't remember what year, but he also was runner-up in Mr. Basketball.
The guy's 6'4", 245.
Yeah, Mr. Basketball runner-up in the state of Indiana, which basketball's a big deal in Indiana. And he went on a scholarship to Georgia to play basketball. He did not go. He ended up being drafted to play baseball. But he went to a basketball scholarship to Georgia. Mr. Basketball runner-up. I think he made the right choice to playing third base.
Oh, yeah. you would think so.
Yeah.
Especially the money that he made, kidding. I mean, yeah. It's going to be interesting, I think, with the number, with the cap, with all of that. I think if he doesn't do it as the Cardinals or goes in as no cap, it'll be kind of like why La Russa did. He just doesn't want to. And maybe he's less
La Russa
worried.
won. He won a World Series in Oakland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the difference to me. Like World Series, like you won a World Series. You
and maybe Scott's worried less about the fans and more about like maybe there's coaches or people, employees, like front office, part of that organization that he just respects a lot and doesn't want to,
he could have
slide it all.
He could have a business there too. You have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know. But at the same time, like, who's really going to take a slight by him going in with the Cardinals, even if it's somebody that had a big impact on him on the Phillies? Like, it's not like, with the way
Phillies fans,
with
the
fans.
Santa.
But I'm even talking about the front office, like, or people he was connected with, coaches, managers, whatever. Like, the way it ended there, it just didn't end well.
Right.
And he won the World Series with St. Louis. So it seems like a no-brainer, but We'll find out pretty soon. I don't know when that's decided, but
Well, he goes in July is when the actual enshrinement is, the
Right.
speeches. So you'll find out. Oh, one last thing before we move on from this. Did you see Adam Wainwright's tweet about this, about Roland? He said,
I did, yes.
I'll just recap it. I don't have the words exactly, but he
See if I can
said
find it.
that he's happy for Scott, one of the nicest guys ever, and he bought his first 2 suits. Scott Rolen bought his first 2 suits for Adam.
Yep.
Whenever he came into the league because he didn't have any suits.
Yep.
So
I can't wait for the speech. He said, yeah, generous person with a big heart. Brad Thompson, I know, was on the radio this week, BT, talking about Scott as well. He had a great story about his MLB debut. Brad Thompson's coming in, and, huge crowd, and he made the mistake of looking around and was like, oh, no, this is big time. And he said that they threw the ball around, and Scott came up and brought it to him and said, your family in yet? He said, no, they're not in yet, Mr. Roland. They'll be in later this week. He's all right. He's like, pretty big crowd tonight. He said, yeah. He said, all right, well, good luck. So he said that Scott, for the work that you saw him put on the field and how just serious he was, actually really dry humor, really funny guy, which I found interesting because he just seems kind of like, by the book, just always after it, pretty, at least from what I remember, pretty serious dude.
Oh yeah, it's very Goldie-like. No smiling.
Yeah.
Lots of exactly like you said. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about where do you want to go? You want to go winter warm up? You want to talk about Chip Caray? Anyone?
We could do a brief winter warm up recap before getting into Chip. I mean, I thought it was a great event. I had never been before. I think you guys have you guys been before? Was it
No,
your first time?
That was our first time.
It's been 3 years since they've done it.
Right. That was our first time going. I didn't love the setup. Very
Switching back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't love that part of it. I had a great time. It was we got to talk. Look, a lot of people get to live right there in St. Louis and within 30 minutes of St. Louis and in the ballpark and have all those opportunities to meet guys and run into guys and get autographs from guys. We live 4 hours away now. At the closest I live, 2.5 hours away. Kyle probably closest at 2 hours away or so at different times in our lives. But to be able to have interaction with those guys in that that like lax of an environment is rare, right? Like, because whenever you have a chance with someone sign an autograph at the field, or like when we go to Cincinnati where you have better access to the guys as a road team, you don't really get that interaction to be able to have a conversation or just say a few things. So that's what I felt was the coolest part about it, was actually having a little chit chat with each guy, and just thanking them and just having that opportunity, if that makes sense at all.
When we got there, or at least online coming in, I was a little nervous because all of the people who have been there for years and years and years were saying, "Oh, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be awful, and they've ruined winter warm up." And man, it just was not that way to me at all. It was an enjoyable experience. You got the opportunity to sit and listen to the owners talk, to the GM talk. You got to be around Cardinal fans and Cardinal baseball. Yeah, switching between venues was a little odd, and that's surely something that can be figured out. To go through one point of entry, even if you have to cross the street to Ballpark Village, you're not coming back with a bomb in that quick amount of time. So surely to goodness they can figure out how to get you from one place to the next for next year's event. But all in all, I was pleasantly surprised and look forward to going back again.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I'm curious to know, so I just came up for the day Saturday and did the full day with my daughter, who's 12. She'll be 13 in July, and she loved it. We both really enjoyed it. I think my favorite part probably was the dugout and clubhouse tour. That was really, really cool because I've never been down there. I know it's the only time that they open up the clubhouse for fans to go down there and see that. And they did some cool stuff. They rearranged the lockers and had Yachty and Albert's locker next to each other, and you could take a picture in front of it, which I thought was really cool. So the fanfare with it I thought was great. I agree on the switching back and forth, especially going over to Busch. Pretty cold that day, especially the morning that I got there Saturday. It was we got there right at 9 when it started, and it was pretty chilly switching over there. But I thought the clubhouse tour was really cool. Yeah, and then I don't know, and maybe you guys can chime in because you did the whole 3-day thing. Do you think it's a full 3-day event? Because I feel like in terms of the tour, the things that they had on sale, the auction, like all that stuff, like seeing that really only took that one day for me Saturday. But
Yeah.
it seemed like the big draw was, at Bally Sports Live on the stage and some of those other, sections in there, the bars that they had, having some of those live Q&As that I know were different each day. You had Gersh, you had Mo, you had Wayno, you had the first day I was there, the morning I was there, they had the writers. So we saw
Right.
Katie Wu, Jeff Jones, Derek Gould, and all those guys did a panel and talked with Jennifer Lane Gosh. And that was really cool. I thought that was really cool. But it seemed like stretching it to 3 days, if you were going to come to all three, it was really if you wanted to take in probably some of those live Q&A portions and things, right?
Well, I think
And the autographs, of course.
right. I think according to other people that have been there many years and previously, that it was missing a lot of vendors compared to
Interesting.
years before. So, like when we went to the All-Star game and All-Star week of festivities in 2009, there was stuff everywhere, from at the Dome to the Convention Center to like we walked, and there was just vendors and vendors and vendors of all kinds of stuff everywhere. There was like kids stuff to play in. There were, just all kinds of
Right.
events. So I think it was lacking a lot of those things that you would to kill time to do other things. Like, and I think that's a lot of places that are usually there didn't show up because of, I don't know, cost. Maybe they charged more than they had previously. Maybe there wasn't enough space compared to previous years because it's usually in a hotel convention center. So I think it's just different than what it was years past. So I don't know if that's why it. Yes, it could have been. You could have done it in 2 days, absolutely. If it wasn't all about just the autographs, because I think the autograph line went really well. Even whenever you had multiple, we did. Kyle and I did for Goldschmidt and Kyle.
Tommy
Nolan.
Evan.
No, the same time. This
All right.
signing was at the same time.
Oh,
Joe McEwen.
Little Mac, Joe
Yeah,
McEwen.
yeah. Joe
Oh,
McEwen and,
new
and
bench
Goldie,
coach, yeah.
was at the exact same time. Well, Goldie's line was 300 people
Right.
total, and Joe McEwen's was 100 and something. So like we were able to go through the Goldie line and then come back and be able to get what we needed with Joe McEwen. So like even the line stuff, only thing I heard bad about lines was Adam Wainwright, because Adam is so good with fans. He took a long time with every single fan, and he went over I think like an hour longer than
Wow.
he was supposed to.
I
So
bet the
then-
fans appreciated that, though.
Then it went way longer. Everything else got moved back. Rick Ankiel was an hour later.
Kinda
and
pushed stuff back,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think that was then he was supposed to do the Q&A that we got to talk with Horton. Ricky Horton did with him. That got pushed back because everything just kind of got messed up. So Kyle and I met Adam Wainwright for a signing for his charity last year. I don't remember, sometime last year, and I didn't have anything good to say. I didn't think of anything to ask him. I didn't have anything. I just told him good luck this year. My wife makes fun of me every single time that I talk to someone now, a player, and I don't have anything to say. So now every time I meet someone, I always have a question. I always have something prepared, something to have a conversation with, because Adam Wainwright, who spends all this awesome time with his fans, I didn't use any of that time and just got his autograph. So from now on, I use my opportunities in front of me.
What'd you ask Tommy?
What did I ask Tommy? I told Tommy that he should have won the Gold Glove at all
I
three
did
positions.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I said for sure at shortstop.
Yeah, and I told him we had a podcast. Love for him to come on. Gave him a business
Yep.
card. Told him to please come on the show. We talked. We just had a couple little things back and forth.
He seems like a good dude.
he was really nice.
Hey,
I showed him my hoodie.
Yeah, the
My
Tommy
Tom-
two
I
bags
said-
there,
I said-
breaking tea.
I said, hey Tommy, I'll grab it. I said, hey Tommy, can you sign my jersey, Tommy Two Bags? And he goes, you want me just to write Tommy Two Bags? I said, no. I want you to sign it.
Sign your name
and
first.
then write Tommy Two Bags. I said, look, I got your hoodie on. And he goes, oh, that's awesome. Now you talk. I can pull up the jersey.
Well, Josh, I have to say, I'll point this out. The side hustle Ryan does for this podcast is unbelievable.
Yo, I know.
I,
yeah.
I mean, every autograph line he
There it
gets in, he is passing out a business card. You know, fans can only go into the clubhouse 1 day a year, 3 days a year, and that is on winter warm-up weekend. When all of the Cardinal players return to the clubhouse in St. Louis and they open up their little locker box, do you know what they're going to find? They're going to
That's a
find a
Winner
business
podcast
card
card.
invite to the That's a Winner podcast.
That's right.
That's right.
And one last story, sitting with this guy, the most embarrassing moment I've had at Busch
Oh,
Stadium
come on. That's not embarrassing.
was,
That is
was
not
that winter
embarrassing.
warm up. The supposed to be final question of the duets
No,
on
let me
stage.
tell this then. No, I don't want to. I don't want you to talk bad about me. Look, what is what everyone says about media, good, bad, or ugly? What everyone says, not just your team, not just the Cardinals, not just wherever. Everyone always says they're too easy.
soft.
They're too
Softball
soft. They're too easy
questions.
on them because they have to work with these people every single day, right?
You got to keep good
You
relationships.
have, and I understand that as someone that has been in the media before. I
Here
understand
it
that
comes.
you have to be able to do that. So they asked that we have a Q&A with the DeWitts, both DeWitts, DeWitt Jr. and third, sitting up on there with a lady, local news lady, doing the Q&A. And I want to ask things that people that we talk to on Twitter every single day ask about. Like, ask this. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And all the questions I came up with weren't like very nice. Okay, they weren't. And I told Kyle that we're sitting there. He's like, "You're gonna ask a question." I'm like, "I don't have anything like really like fluffy, nice to ask. I just want, I was gonna ask, why they didn't get into the free agent market and that
Right.
sort of thing,
Pitching
And the first thing they said was about that, so that didn't need to be
Took
asked.
that off. They knew that was going to get asked.
So I was, yes, they knew it was going to be asked. So I kept in my head how I could ask a question nicely and very short, like not to be. I hate when people ask questions and it's a really long
And
question.
then
to get-
his hand went up.
yeah, then my hand goes up, and Kyle goes, "Oh, you're gonna ask something?" Yeah, I'm gonna ask it. And then they brought the microphone over, and I said, "Mr. DeWitt, this is more about you guys than the team. I was wondering, and then what's your guys' plan going forward next 5-10 years? Is it, does that mean you have a plan in place to either succeed Mr. DeWitt Jr. or plan to sell the team?" I thought that was a very question that everyone wants to know.
yeah, it's
I
talked
think
about all the time since
all the
Shannon,
time.
Mike Shannon threw that out there a
A
couple years ago.
couple years ago, Mike Shannon said he had heard the team was for sale, and Mr.
And they shot it down pretty quick, to be fair.
Yes, the Shannon part, yes. So Bill DeWitt III says, "Boy, that was direct," and everyone chuckled. And he says, as long as Dad is healthy and sharp, there's no plans in place. It's status quo. Now, did I expect any different answer? No, not really, unless they already had a succession plan. Like, I will take over at some point. We don't know when that is. Like, that could have been the
Yeah.
answer.
Not like Art Moreno with the Angels this week, where he's like, "Actually, I'm not gonna."
right.
And he changed his mind.
And
There was no news like that.
Right,
with
they
them.
didn't want to break any news there, so there could be a succession plan in place, and they didn't want to just put that out there right then. I didn't expect much of a difference, but I think that those are questions that people have every single day. We see that on Twitter. Like, I can't think of his name all of a sudden. Oh, he was there. He asked the question right before me. Oh, I can't think of his name all of a sudden. And he asked about red jerseys, if we're ever going to use the red jerseys. And he said, actually, Bill DeWitt the third said, actually, we're going to do the City Connect, and then there's going to be some red.
Oh, was it another Twitter?
Yeah.
Was it Quinn?
Quinn,
Quinn
yes. There you go.
yeah.
Yes, Quinn.
I saw him there.
So someone, he tweets out, "Hey, I just asked this question," and someone tweeted, "Hey, you should ask them if they're going to sell the team." And he goes, "Someone just asked that question." Like, that's literally a question that people ask every single day on Twitter. What is the plan going forward? Bill DeWitt is 80. Bill
He's
DeWitt
not,
Jr.
yeah.
80-something
He's
years
not
old.
getting younger.
He's 80-something years old. So I think that's a very important question as fans. 5 to 10 years is still a long time in this sports bubble. Like, 5 to 10 years from now, the guys on this team, there may be just a couple left, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's a big difference in that bubble. But right now, I thought it was a good question. But go ahead, Kyle.
Let me
Go ahead.
trace
Go
my
ahead.
steps just a little bit. It was the fact that I was sitting right next to you, that I was associated with you, and then the guy that you're talking about being senile or dead is
No.
there in the present, and it sounds like you're saying, when he becomes senile and dead, what are you doing with the team?
No,
And
that's
the
what his
poor
son
guy's right
said.
there.
Well, you know
But
what?
hey, it is a valid question. I'll give you that.
Well, you know what? I don't think Bill DeWitt Jr. heard the question, because I think after the question he goes, "What did he say?" And then I think the third then said, Oh, nothing.
Well, I mean, when we saw him a couple years ago after the franchise record
That's
15th
right.
win at Wrigley, outside of Wrigley, we saw him
That's
walking out and
right.
leaving. We
I
had to yell.
forgot about
We had to
that.
yell at him about 8 times. We were trying to tell him to sign Trevor Story, and thankfully, he did not hear that.
I forgot about that story. Yes, we outside of Wrigley after we broke the record of the most wins in a row, and we
It was
see
15 or 16.
yeah,
can't
I
remember
think it
which
was
one
number. I think it was 15. And
Yeah.
Bill DeWitt Jr. was outside, and I said, "Hey, Mr. DeWitt," and he waves, and I said, "We need to sign a shortstop," and he goes, "Huh?" I said, "We need to sign a shortstop. Story, huh? Trevor Story," and he goes, like, so I don't even heard me then either. You know, I forgot about that story.
Yeah.
But
But
there we
hey,
go.
let me wrap this conversation on a positive note. The question was valid, and we have been very blessed to have the DeWitts as the owners of the Cardinals.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't ask that with any malicious intent.
Right.
That I want you to sell the team. It's like we've had one losing season in the last 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
What are the plans going forward? Because I want that to continue. So if you have something in place, you know, we're as fans, we're worried what's next.
Right.
Does that mean that we have a terrible owner like in Cincinnati or in Anaheim, or is Mr. DeWitt the third going to take over and his plan
And be like Steve Cohen.
and he wants to spend more, right? But he may not be into it. But I feel like in the last 2 years, DeWitt the third has been around a lot more, on stage a lot
Yeah.
more, front facing a lot more than we have seen in the past.
Seems like he's still got a lot invested in it overall, because I know he's largely in charge of kind of the phases of Ballpark Village, right?
Right.
We heard him talk about that when we went to Bloggers Day this past year. So yeah, I could see that plan going there. To wrap up winter warm up, I did want to say I noticed, and I meant to send some links to you guys. I don't know if you saw it, but as a part of this, there was there were media moments where the players had some media time, you know,
Yes.
and a lot of those were recorded. A lot of those, Charlie Marlowe actually, at Charlie Marlowe _ with 590 The Fan, and he's on Hot Take Central with those guys. But he had a lot of YouTube videos of those full. Kyle Reese as well helped. They had a lot of full interviews with players. Jack, Waino, Wilson Contreras. I mean, Tommy. A lot of these guys. There was a few nuggets in there that I thought were really interesting that I wanted to bring up really quick. Waino and Contreras specifically, and their two, and these were all like probably like 15-minute segments, right, where the reporters were just asking questions. Waino and Wilson Contreras actually had a lot of positive things to say about new pitching coach Dusty Blake.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned this to you. They had a lot of high praise for him. The guy's only 40. Obviously taking over for Mike Maddox. Wainwright mentioned that, you know, when he first met him, he kind of thought, oh, he's a young guy. He's more about the analytics stuff. He said, but the more I got to know Dusty and the more I got to talk with him, he knows his stuff and he's really well invested to it. And so Waino talked about actually working with him on correcting the dead arm thing
Right.
and his mechanics and what was wrong with that and how they just – Wainwright was saying he hated not being on the mound at the end of the year because he really felt like he had figured it out, and he credited Dusty a lot with that. So I thought that was encouraging. Wilson Contreras didn't even get asked about Dusty. He got asked a question about some of the pitchers, and he brought up Dusty on his own and said, you know, I reached out to, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said I reached out to Dusty about the pitching staff and just said generally, hey, can you just give me some stuff on these guys, you know, that I want to know and things that will help me kind of get to know them. And he said that Dusty went above and beyond just, you know, data, you know, points of what he needs to know about the staff and things. So Wilson had a lot of high praise about him as well. So I thought that was really encouraging because, you know, that's a hole to fill with Mike Maddox. And then the other big thing that I enjoyed hearing actually was Jack's, his little press conference, about 15 minutes or so. He got asked candidly, he actually got asked some pretty pointed questions about health and all that stuff, and he talked about this season, and he doesn't know what's going to be after this, but he said he's never wanted to win so bad, and it's just on him at this point. He's got to stay healthy, right? But he actually got choked up talking about Waino.
Right.
He talked about Adam Wainwright, talked about it being his last season, and he talked about how it left a bitter taste in his mouth that he wasn't out there every fifth day with Yachty. You know, I mean, he was watching obviously, but not to be out there with him in his last season. He hated that. So But he got choked up to the point where, I mean, he had some tears. Just talking about the impact that Wainwright's made on his life on and off the field and how he's taken him under his wing. So it looks like Jack's focused. It looks like he's actually finally healthy. And boy, if he is, I mean, this team could be really, really good. If he's half to 75% of what he was in 2019. And look, if you remember the way 2021 started off, I mean, the guy started off 8-0.
Right.
He was on his way to probably starting the All-Star game.
Absolutely.
And then had that freak oblique injury. So I think if he's there, this is going to be a big season for him, and for the team's going to need him.
And he needs a big season for himself.
Yeah,
for
it's a walk year.
Yeah, to be able to get a good contract somewhere. I think all those things were different perspectives that we usually don't get to see. And I think guys are a lot more candid because it's the off season. There's not a lot of coach speak or player speak where they're kind of saying the BS things one day at a time and all those types of things. I think guys are excited. People ask me on Twitter and some negative groups that I'm in of people talking about things of, this team's not very good and all those things. And I said, I don't see the negativity. These guys, to me, in the conversations I had with, them and listening to everyone on all the press conferences and their Q&As, like everyone's excited, ready for the season and expect big things. And they know that it hinges on the pitching staff, but they're excited to get out after it, and they think that they can be a really, really good team. And I think that if players play up to their potential, then absolutely it can be a really good team. Switch gears a little bit because of the winter warm-up, they talked about the expansion of Ballpark Village. That was a question asked in the DeWitt's Q&A. So they talked about wanting to add another apartment tower to Ballpark Village. Now, I don't know exactly where it would go. He just said the 3 surface lots behind Ballpark Village currently would sit in one of those areas. They would also like to do a corporate headquarters, but it's soft right now for that, obviously.
So those fly balls are going to die even more now, huh?
Well, right. So
when are we moving the fences in?
Yeah, all that type of thing to ask. Is that a big deal to you? Do you care about that? What I see a lot of whenever I put that out there, to me that's exciting, right? Whenever I think of, I couldn't wait for Ballpark Village. I couldn't wait for all growth. I love changing of landscapes, changing of buildings, and adding all those sort of things. So does that matter to you guys? Because I just got a lot of negative feedback on Twitter that was, oh, they can spend money there but not on the roster. Oh, this is where they took the money for the roster and they put it into this. Like, does that matter to you guys? Is that important to you, Ballpark Village, and expanding that, or do you see it as them wasting money that they could be spending on the roster?
Well, hopefully it turns into a situation that increases more profit with a high upfront cost. Hopefully it's a situation where the towers both sell out, they're making that income on rent, and then they can invest that money into the team. I do get the point, though, about it seems when Ballpark Village phases were happening that maybe we weren't spending the money on the team, and that makes a lot of sense. The only thing that I would criticize of that, I guess, if I was going to criticize it, and I don't really think that I am, I'm kind of neutral on it, is a corporate headquarters and an apartment tower doesn't do me any good personally as a fan. That's nothing else that I can go and enjoy when I'm at the ballpark, unless I decide to move to St. Louis one of these days. But other than that, I have no problem with it. I think it is exciting to see growth and development no matter where it's happening. You just certainly hope it doesn't impact the wallet and the spending that they can do on the big league club.
Well, I think that also means new retail at the bottom, though, too. Like we got Salt and Smoke out of that big tower, obviously, for the residential part of it. I think new buildings also come with retail and restaurants, which I think, obviously in the business sense of it, that you try and get as many people there all the time in that area to live there, to have all that. So then all those things can survive, because let's not forget that this is 81 days out of the year that there are people there, right? There are people going into Ballpark Village and living in, so you have to do more all the time. I look at it as it's good going forward that it's growth, because the city of St. Louis needs that, and I understand.
It's good to see it come out of COVID too.
Well, absolutely. You want, and the the tower was sold out initially. Mr. DeWitt said it's 95% full right now. I think it's 15 units or something or not. And he said it's always full in the summer for some reason. He was being funny. But, I wanted to go on a tour. We didn't have time to go on a tour of Cardinal Way, whatever, One Cardinal Way. But I think that's good. I like to see it. I would like to see them get rid of someone buy the parking garage in dead center field and do stuff with it. And someone else was on Twitter talking about in the Millennium Hotel, get rid of that and all the issues that come from that as well.
Right.
I like all of that. I think that means that, like Kyle said, there's more revenue to come. There's more things coming in. So if they can make more money, then that gives them more opportunity to make more than just on baseball, because that's what it's all about. If they can become more billionaires, then maybe they'll have more billions to be able to spend on a team.
Right. But I do get the fan side of it of, okay, well, the money's going here. One, is the money going there instead of the team? Two, if they start getting high revenues and income off of that, will they actually turn around and spend it back on the team? Or will they, for example, and I don't know how much of the weeds we want to get on this, or will they just pocket that money because of what they're about to lose from this Sinclair broadcast group mess that's going on with, the RSNs and the tanking of all that? And there was an article that came out tonight that we saw before going on from David O'Brien, who I believe is he's with the Athletic. And he mentioned the Cardinals specifically with all that the Cardinals are going to be a team that was mentioned in the article as a franchise likely to take one of the hardest blows from revenue.
And we've been talking about this
for a while,
for 2 months, and no one else has been really on it except Jeff Jones with the Belleville Democrat. He's the only one that has had any conversation, and I asked him that question on this podcast, and I didn't know if he would even have an answer. Like, I didn't know if he'd be educated enough to even want to comment. Like, not saying he wouldn't be educated, but like if he had.
It's a big mess. It's hard to even reading it. I'm like, what does this exactly mean?
Right, and the point is, like, this is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I worried 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago about the bankruptcy that could be happening, that the Cardinals wouldn't spend the money because we're talking about $700 million less income that wouldn't be coming. Like, if I told you, hey, you're going to have, let's say you make $100,000, you're going to have $20,000 in income this year instead. Are you going to change your habits? Yes, right? That's
probably so, yeah.
Right. That's going to be the difference in how this goes. And it's not like it's an easy, like, well, we can just take it over and do it. Yes, the Cardinals probably are going to have to do that, or the Major League Baseball, or NBA and NHL. They all are through these networks. Bally Sports, I think, is 19 of the 30 MLB teams have it, something like that. NHL is the similar number. NBA is the similar number. They're all going to have to, something's going to have to happen for all of these to take over. But it can't happen overnight. Like, to be able to outfit cameras and studios and production trucks and all
paying
those things.
The employees that we talked about.
Yeah, like all that doesn't happen overnight. Kyle probably knows that better than anyone because he works mobily doing broadcasting for basketball games. Like that right there, like the systems and planning that goes into it, they can't just go, well, we'll just
take it over now.
We're going to take it over today.
Let's get a couple cameras and just go down the field.
Right, and it's a huge investment as well. You talk about money. Well, yeah, they can get that money back because they're the ones running it, and they're the ones with all the money coming in directly to them. But how much money is it going to cost to get all those high-def cameras? How much money are they going to have to invest in it? Then you're talking about, well, then you're taking, I don't know, Kyle, what do you think, $50 million to outfit a brand new everything? Well, guess what? That's going to cost more money to not be able to possibly pay players because you thought you were going to bring in $700 million. Instead, now you're going to pay out $50 million to outfit your new, streaming service.
Well, hopefully there's a situation here where there's, I would guess, some sort of liquidation process. But what hasn't gone right with Sinclair and the whole Bally Sports scenario? I mean, you would hope that, okay, we're defaulting on this billions of dollars deal. So, what is the court system going to do in bankruptcy court when we go through all this? And hopefully some of that is to do with, okay, all the equipment that you own that you now can sell, you're going to give to the creditors, the people that you owe the money to. So hopefully there is something like that. Perhaps Bally Sinclair can come out of this with a sale of their own, but nobody's going to pay what they paid for it. They got too greedy and tried to get too big too quick, and it fell apart on them. And
it's just
one of those situations that sometimes bad things happen to people who do kind of bad things. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. And from a Cardinals perspective, look, I think the thing of it is, there's going to be a mega TV deal. There's going to be a payout at the end of the day. Is it going to be the payout that the Bally Sports was supposed to get them? Maybe not. But the TV rights aren't going away. They're going to be there. The money for it is going to be there. How and from whom it comes may change. But to a certain extent, I get and I understand the concern on what is going to happen short term to the Cardinals when this deal ultimately, if it does falls in. But I think at the long term, it's going to come back in some form, and the Cardinals should be able to hopefully withstand that storm, similarly to how they withstood a season without fans in the ballpark because of COVID.
Right.
Well, let me say this part. People like to hate on the DeWitts, right? So if you do not believe they are good business people, or you do not believe that they're good at running a baseball team, then do you trust them to do this properly as well? I'm not saying I'm one of those people, but I'm saying if you talk negatively all the time about them, why all of a sudden do you believe that they would do this properly? Right? Is part of my thoughts on it. I tweeted this earlier today through the That's Winter podcast page at That's Winter Pod. If they get this exactly right, if they can do this perfectly right, it could be a much larger revenue stream
than
the Bally deal, right? You do it right, you can make more money because you're taking over all the control, all the money's coming back to you. But get it wrong, they will lose viewership, attendance, and then bring in less money. So it's going to happen, like Kyle said. It's going to happen in some version, whether that's a different company takes over, whether MLB takes over, whether the Cardinals takes over their actual streaming. But if you do it wrong, what's happening right now, like where I am in Indianapolis, I can't watch the Indiana Pacers because no one can get that channel.
Yeah.
Well, what does that do? That makes people care less. People are having the same issues in St. Louis because they can't watch the game locally. Well, if you do not fix these blackouts and you do not fix these issues with the regional sports networks, you're going to have less viewership. You're going to have less viewership. You're going to have less attendance. You're going to have less people caring. You're going to make less money. So the importance of the DeWitts and MLB getting it right, not just for the Cardinals, but for all 30 or all 20.
NBA, NHL. I mean, this is affecting a lot of sports.
Like, people are watching these games less in regionally than ever before because they can't get Bally Sports. Like, how dumb is that?
The Blues are Bally as well, right?
Yes, the Blues are Bally's as well. So people are not able to watch their product. So what do? They care less. They don't pay attention as much. Then you don't go to games, and then the Cardinals thrive on attendance. So if you can't get people butts in the seats, they're not making money. And if the people aren't watching, they're not making money either because then there's no deal there either. So that's where my 2 cents is on that part of it. If you want to add to that, or you want to just transition to Bally Sports.
I was going to say, I think the problem with this is there's so many layers, right? Because we talk about the Cardinals getting it right. Well, it's not just their decision,
absolutely,
right? MLB is going to have a lot of say on this. There's 2 things I wanted to pull real quick from this article that we all saw tonight. It actually came out yesterday from Daniel Frankel with Next TV, nexttv.com. So why is this such a big deal? What's the mess that's in? So essentially, Bloomberg reported yesterday, Wednesday, that Diamond Sports Group, which is the subsidiary that manages Sinclair Broadcast Group, that they're going to essentially have to skip their mid-February $140 million interest-only payment that's servicing around $8.6 billion in debt as it prepares for Chapter 11 restructuring. So that's the mess that they're in. What he's suggesting here that's most likely to happen is, and this is from Bloomberg, it says under restructuring plan, describe unnamed inside sources, debt would be turned into equity, and Diamond's largest creditors, Prudential Financial, Fidelity, a bunch of names you don't care about, they would become owners of the Bally Sports RSNs. So essentially, he's saying that the latter part of this seems to happen. It's either one or all of Diamond's pro league partners, which is NBA, NHL, MLB, would either have to step in and assume ownership stake, or the RSN operator would have to restructure, which is what this article is saying is most likely appears to be happening, is a restructuring. So like you said, Kyle, either way, it's not going to get lost. These teams aren't going to lose it. They're still going to get, they're still going to get that revenue. They're still going to have control of their TV broadcast. But how it happens, when it happens, if it's successful in that transfer, it's going to be a mess.
It's a short-term issue, right? But that also comes to the short term of why maybe the Cardinals didn't spend $30 or $40 million in the offseason, right? It's a short-term issue that can last
They
a
want to
couple
have
years.
resolved maybe before. Or it could just be this who they are. I mean, they've been operating this way for like 10 years now.
That's true too. But it's an issue that could last a couple years, because if they take it over, it's going to take some while to get that type of money back. That's why they sold it out, because it's easier for someone else to come and say, I'm going to give you $700 million and we worry about it, instead of you having to take on all of that. I mean, Kyle, would you sign up to go? You could go and do some Cardinal stuff, right?
Well, I thought they were going to call when they hired Chip Caray, but nobody called. So here I am.
Gosh darn it!
Yeah,
home in the basement.
I think you have to put in a resume. I think before someone just calls.
You got to be kidding. Chip Caray did not send in a resume. I don't care what you think. Chip Caray did not send in a resume.
I guarantee someone called. Someone said, "Hey, Chip is interested." If no one called and said, "Hey, Kyle Peach is interested," then that's on you. So let's transition over to Chip Caray.
Let's talk about Chip.
So, we're almost an hour in. We didn't leave much time for your old Chip. But so Harry Caray, if you didn't know, spent more seasons with the St. Louis Cardinals than he did any other franchise. A lot of people didn't know that.
Holy cow!
A lot of people didn't know that. Harry Caray was fired by the St. Louis Cardinals because he was sleeping with the owner's wife.
Yikes.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, okay. We'll make sure we add
Allegedly.
that. Add that in.
Supposedly. Okay. Chip was born as the grandson of Harry Caray. He was born in St. Louis, went to high school in St. Louis. I remember him as a kid being the Cubs commentator, which makes me go ick immediately. When I hear his voice, I think of early 2000s Cubs watching on WGN when they played the Cardinals. That's my initial thought when I think of Chip Caray. Even though he's been with the Braves now since like 2005 or something like that. He's been with them for a lot longer, but I don't hear that broadcast like I did hearing the Cubs broadcast when I was a teenager.
Right.
How do we feel? So obviously Dan McLaughlin is no longer with the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll ask two parts of this question. One, are we happy with Chip Caray? Do you wish it was Aaron Goldsmith, who was reported as the lead possibly to get this job? And three, because it is a lateral move within Bally Sports, does this leave an opening for Dan McLaughlin to come back? Is that
I've
one of the
seen
things?
some of that chatter, yeah.
So let me just, I'll put those to you three, those three to you two, and let you guys give me what you think on those.
Well, I'll start. I wasn't super happy about it. I mean, I'm not throwing a fit, mad, but I didn't think it was great. And I think so. I said this on Twitter, and I said it feels like picking Chip Caray as the next broadcaster was. It feels to me kind of like it felt when we picked Mike Matheny as the next manager in 2012. Now, the reason I say that is not because of the experience. Obviously, Chip's got a ton of experience. That's the difference here. Matheny had no experience. Right. But it just feels vanilla a little bit. I do like, obviously, he's got the St. Louis background, St. Louis ties. They said that. DeWitt said that at winter warm-up. Somebody asked a question about, the next broadcaster having St. Louis ties, and they said, yeah, that's gonna weigh into it. But it just felt like a safe kind of vanilla kind of bet. And not to say that he's a bad broadcaster. I don't think he is. I've listened to his clips. He's got the voice, got a good voice. But for me, why I don't like it, I hear his voice, I think Braves. And I don't hate the Braves.
You grew up in that market.
Yes.
So
I grew up in Arkansas near Memphis. So like Braves and Cardinals, those were the games we got. You're either Braves or Cardinals fan. Those were the countries it was in. And I don't hate the Braves, but I got a lot of friends that are Braves fans that annoy the crap out of me. And I can tell you that I got several tweets from them last night. Have fun.
Right.
Best move Braves made all offseason. Like they and I think to some degree that can speak volumes a little bit. And I know that some teams fans can get a little jaded when you've had a guy, he's been there 20 something years with the Braves.
But people said the same about Dan McLaughlin. Thank goodness he's gone. He was terrible. And I think Dan McLaughlin is one of the best.
Great. Yeah.
He's one of the best in baseball. So
but I think for me, the reason I like the idea of Goldsmith, now to be fair, I didn't even know his name. I didn't know who Aaron Goldsmith was. I had to look him up. Now when I heard the voice, it hit me that I've heard him before, because us just watching baseball and hearing calls and walk-offs and stuff, I've heard his voice before. Very excited, very high energy. He gets pumped up. I like that, which sometimes can be a little annoying. But I like that he's younger. I mean, he's
Right.
only 39. He's
Sure.
got 10 years of experience. He's been with the Mariners, I think, for about 10 years. But he's only 39. Also a St. Louis native, I believe. Grew up in that area. I just think it would have been cool to do something a little different, a little younger, and who knows if Goldsmith actually pulled out. I mean, they might have let him know, like, hey, we're giving this to Chip, and you can say you pulled out kind of thing. But I don't love it. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
Do you think it opens up to bring Dan back?
I don't know. I
keep
get the
booth 3-man booth next season.
I get the
type?
idea of that because it's lateral, right?
Yeah.
Because Chip's coming. Atlanta's, that's another
Yeah.
Valley RSN, right?
Mhm.
So I get the idea of that. Man, if that happens though, I don't think it's gonna be anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, do you?
I don't. I think you hire Aaron Goldsmith. No, it does not happen. Like
Because he's so much younger,
yes.
he would be your guy. You're
He's
riding with
your
him for a while.
He's your 25, 30-year guy. Like that would be the goal of that would be. And to me, Aaron Goldsmith was fine, was good. I thought he was over the top for me. But I think you would have learned to love him, right? And I think that would be the case. Now, Chip Caray is 50 some odd years, 58, 59 years old, I think. So he's 10 years older than Dan McLaughlin. So to me, it says in a couple of years that could be a 2-man booth on that side, like they do on the radio side,
Right.
and have a color guy type deal going on, and then you have two really good guys. I think Chip Caray is a professional. Like when I hear his voice,
There's no
it's-
argument in that.
when I hear his voice, I think I'm listening to baseball, and it's professional. I expect to hear good calls. So I think it's possible. I don't know, Kyle. What do you think?
Well, I was first of all surprised that Chip Caray was the second name because being as old as he is and as long-term into Atlanta as he had been, you wouldn't have expected him to even consider making that move. Is he my preferred choice? I don't know. My preferred choice, honestly, is Dan McLaughlin. That's my preferred choice, and I would go to bat for him for forever. But obviously, he made a mistake. He decided to step away, and can't fault him for that either. Second choice would have been Joe Buck. Then it would have been Bob Costas, and then who knows who. So I guess I come away with it thinking my first reaction, and I text this to Ryan, oh, a Cub,
Right.
with the Caray name. But, nonetheless, the St. Louis ties are there. He's a professional broadcaster, good delivery, great voice, excitement in the voice, and give him a shot, see what it goes. Will Dan McLaughlin come back? I don't know. I think it's going to be a bit. I think if he does, maybe it's more on the radio side initially. He did do some radio on KMOX, so maybe that's the next move back. Maybe it becomes kind of a shared rotational deal that it kind of had become late in the season with Dan sliding in to do some radio late last year. Gosh, I would love for that to happen. How soon it's going to happen, I'm not sure, but Chip is going to be the guy. So gotta find a way to fall in love with him, and I'm sure Cardinal fans will as the season goes on, provided he has an outlet with which to broadcast on.
Yes,
it's
right.
important.
Yeah, I do think what the bummer of this all, right, is one, nobody wanted. I don't think anybody wanted Danny Mac to not be doing this,
Right.
and just to see over the last couple of years, kind of the chemistry that he and BT have formed.
Sure.
Brad Thompson has been really good, like really good in the booth. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if that chemistry can bond there
Sure.
with he and Chip. And I'm sure BT likes the pick, and I'm sure he's excited about it and has a lot of respect for him. But that's another thing I thought about too with Goldsmith, because you would have had, and maybe that was part of the Cardinals' worry, is you would have had two pretty young guys in the booth calling games. Now Goldsmith, again, he's been doing that with the Mariners for, he's been doing it for a decade.
Right.
I
on
mean, he
the
got
radio-
hired at
on the radio
29,
side.
which is, yeah, he's been doing it for a while, not so much on the TV side, but maybe that was part of it. I think it would have been cool to see kind of two younger guys kind of go into it together and build chemistry. But I think the idea, of Chip, he is a little bit older, but it does seem like something too, that these guys, there's not a lot of turnover in these kind of jobs. Like
Right.
these guys want to do this for a while. And if you're out, it's either because you did something egregious, like Danny Mac did. You made a really bad decision outside of the game, that cost you your job, or in Chip's case, or Vince Scully and others, you get to go as long as you want until you're ready to retire.
Right.
So it'll be interesting with Chip to see, like you said, if they, whether it's Danny Mac or they bring someone else in later, maybe that's a little bit younger that they want to kind of raise up, that maybe mentors under Chip for a while, and he kind of phases out in a few years after that. I'm not sure. We don't know those conversations, right? We don't know because nobody knew it was Chip until it was announced it was Chip. Nobody even knew that they were talking.
There was
to him.
only one guy listed for the final two.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know the other one was
Yeah. So I'm curious what they said in the interview that, because at the end of the day, I mean, you're leaving the Braves after 20 seasons, and the Braves just won the World Series a couple of years ago. They're going to be right back there again, probably the next 5. They've locked up every young, great player they have for like the next 10 years. So they're going to be a really good team too, you know?
Yeah. Personally, I mean, if you want my negative part of it, I think that Aaron Goldsmith was their choice, and he probably got a new deal, a new offer, something
They
that
upped it up.
they keep him there, and Chip Caray was the fallback because it's a Bally Sports move. Bally Sports is who owns, obviously, and makes the decisions, and the DeWitts even mentioned that at winter warm-up, that they have input, but it's Bally Sports' hire. So all he is moved over from to a different location.
Right.
And the check is still coming from the same place. So to me, that leaves it open for possibilities. That's why I think it's interesting.
Different networks too, right? Because Mariners is that root sports.
Yes, Mariners.
Which is, so maybe for Goldsmith, it was also like they gave me my chance. I've been here 10 years. I kind of want to stay.
Yeah.
Might be maybe a little more job security time.
Yeah, maybe. I think I tweeted about that. Maybe he's worried about the bankruptcy looming. Like he didn't want. Maybe someone talked to him about that. Like I think there's all kinds of possibilities of why. And I think Aaron Goldsmith was, because that's why he got leaked, was probably because that's who they were going to choose, and he backed out negatively, I think. But I think no matter who it is and who it was going to be, there are people who are going to hate him no matter what, and people are going to love him no matter what. People hate
There's
Jim
always
Edmonds
both sides,
on TV. People hate BT on TV. People hated Danny Mac. People love Danny Mac. I mean, it's all over the place, and it's a personal preference. And I'm just excited, like Jackie Estes on Facebook said.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Cardinals baseball. She's listening. She's like, I can't wait for Cardinals baseball.
Can't come soon enough.
Can't come soon enough. And we tried to be as positive as we could today. With everything, because there's no real big bad news happening right now.
We didn't rag on Matt Holliday too much.
No, we didn't even talk about Matt Holliday and his leaving. We can save that for a different day.
Clutch again.
Not clutch again.
Oh, that's a perfect line. I'm surprised you hadn't already said that.
Hey, one last broadcasting note before we wrap up here. So, for the first time ever in his tenure with the Cardinals, John Rooney is now the most senior Cardinal broadcaster on the roster starting in 2006. So there you go. The old guy is finally the longest tenured in the booth. He'll be 69 on his next birthday. Yep. So, and I also make a point too that, we talk about Chip Caray's age. He's not old. He's older.
No, not comparatively.
In fact, this could be a move that he's decided to make to come back home and live out his days here. So, will there even be an opportunity for Danny Mac to return? I don't know. The age thing could be a factor the other way as opposed to the front side of it. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
In my understanding too with Rooney, and I love Rooney, I think John's great. I want to say I read or heard something that they would have talked with him, John, but he kind of Nick said earlier, say, I want to stay. I want to stay in the booth. I want to stay in radio. Yeah.
But those guys are Cardinals employees, not KMOX employees.
Okay.
So that's a different thing as well. Like there's a whole different, and that could be the similar thing. Like, I don't know what's happening with that side. I know my job's safe on this side.
And hey, sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'll stop it. So John Rooney does do TV. For those that don't know, I mean, he does. He is a TV voice in the Missouri Valley Conference for basketball, and so he does have that TV experience. He just decided to stay on the radio side for the Cardinals.
Well, depending on how Chip does this year, I might be switching to the radio audio during the TV broadcast.
Wow, you're not one of them, are you? Look,
if he's calling, long flyouts to short right center as home runs. I mean,
Rooney does that really bad.
Rooney's done that. You give guys a pass, especially during COVID when it was kind of hard with the camera shots. But now it's like,
Rooney.
Let's calm down a little bit.
I think Rooney's the worst at that. Well,
I
He
agree.
does get pretty pumped.
You listen on the radio, and I'm like, it's a deep fly ball. It's caught
You're
at
like-
behind second base. Wait, what? What just
Oh.
happened? Yeah.
Infield fly. What?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think of when I think of. All right, well, I have all this stuff over here from winter warm up. We got all kinds of stuff. I got a couple.
Don't hit your mic there. Watch out.
We got. Can you see it? Matt Adams.
Yeah, they had some cheap signed
Well,
memorabilia you
$10
could get.
bucks. $10
Yeah.
for each of these. So I got those for a couple things. Obviously, I had the Edmund. I have an Arenado signed jersey. Kyle asked him, "Hey, go win a World Series for us," and he goes, "I'm gonna do everything I can to do that." Is what he said.
You know he's got to be chomping at the. That's like the one thing left. That,
Yeah.
And I'm sure he doesn't want to do it just once.
And
He wants it.
And I talked to him about the podcast, and I said, "Hey, we'd love for you to come on sometime." And I said, "We have a fairly popular podcast." He goes, "Oh man, that's really cool. I'm happy for you. Congratulations." He was like really like genuinely happy that we had a podcast and that he was a part of. Ricky Horton signed a ball for us. We talked to him a little bit about the podcast and gave him a card. I have one more. I'll reach for. Paul Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt signed jersey. He was stoic.
Did you ask him why he didn't win the Triple Crown?
I didn't. I told him
Have you
congratulations.
figured out what was wrong the last month and a half of the season?
Yeah, I didn't go negative at all.
No, you should.
He
That's good.
He signed MVP on it. I
Nice.
put and I also just put in a bet.
That's
yesterday.
smart to ask them to do that
Yeah,
because if
I
you,
didn't think they would.
I mean, if you ever do, you could probably sell that.
Well, I would never.
You would never,
And
but
by
you
the
could
way,
probably.
Can I say this? Winter warm up is designed for the fans,
Right.
to get access to players they normally don't get access to. All of them are not. There's no certificate of authenticity that goes with these. Now you can pay for that at a different booth in the other part of the building.
Right.
This is for the fans and
Kids and
kids and all that. And same with the caravan. That's for the kids and to get access to the players that you normally don't get.
don't be
if
that guy
you-
poaching autographs.
If you're going to get 20 autographs
It's the worst.
and you're buying tickets up that other people came, I have things on my walls for as far as you can see. There are things boxed up as we're getting ready to move here in 2 weeks, and these things are going to come off the wall and go to a new place. I'm not selling any of this stuff. And I will tell you this, the guy that's buying my house here in Indianapolis, Indiana, where Fisher's, is a St. Louis Cardinals fan. He came in with a
Oh.
Cardinals cap, and he's a Cardinals fan. So maybe now he listens. I don't know.
There was an offer that included all your memorabilia too,
I was
wasn't
gonna
no.
say, yeah, he probably loved the
I
baseball.
told him if he went over asking, I would leave him a piece. If he went over asking price, because we had 5 offers on our house, and I said, if you go over asking, I will leave you a piece of memorabilia. My choice, not his choice of what would stay. But I said he could have a piece. He didn't go over. He just asked.
Be that holiday
Yeah.
autograph, wouldn't it?
I don't have anything on holiday, do I?
No, I just that was
Oh,
making a
when
joke.
we
that
ran
that
into
would be
holiday-
the thing you'd leave.
When we
Yeah.
ran into holiday and I
Oh.
didn't get it autographed, that's one of my
Right.
biggest regrets on Hall of Fame weekend. All right, so that's it. That's the Winter Podcast is brought to you by Jersey Flock, Lids.com, and Breaking Tea. You can get all of those things at our link tree. Get all the discounts. All those jerseys I just held up were all Jersey Flock jerseys.
Got one on right here.
Yes.
Finally, they will come in.
Look, they look
Guys,
good.
If you've ordered from Jersey Flock, it might take a couple months,
It
but
really-
they will come in, and for the price, great. They look great.
Yes, they look great.
Order it now though if you want it before opening day.
Order it today if you want it for opening day, because I'm serious. It will take a month.
Got a Lids hat on. You've got Breaking Tea, the Tommy Two bags.
I got Breaking Tea. They have these in T-shirts. They have these in hoodies. Get it on your coffee mug if you want. Breaking Tea. Use our links on Linktree. Anything you get, we get a little piece of it coming back. Lids.
Jersey Flock, you'll get a discount too with our link. That was like
Yes.
$5 or something.
Jersey
10%,
Flock
5%
is
off or something?
10, I think it's 10%.
10%.
I think
Yeah.
10%. I think Breaking Tea is 10% as well with our link.
Yep.
Lids.com I think is maybe just, I don't know if there's a discount with our link, but all of our links are on Linktree. Be able to check those out to get all those things. Anything else, fellas?
I don't think so. It's nice to hop back on here.
Yes, we were gonna have Polo Asensio on, who's the Spanish broadcaster. We were gonna have him
Get
on.
that scheduled.
I had to cancel because it was the day before Christmas when the storm happened, and I had to travel a day earlier, so I had to cancel on him. He was at winter warm up, and he was hilarious. I ran into Benji Molina while we were there at winter warm up as well. Talked to him.
They seem very down to earth.
Yeah,
cool guys.
You weren't there for that part. Oh, Kyle and I were listening to them. They were hilarious. They were like doing a stand-up comedian show.
Oh, that's
They were
great.
back and forth, just hilarious. So we got to get them on. Polo said he will come on for sure. Benji said in passing that he would as well. But just stay
We're
tuned.
going to get John Denton on as well.
John Denton said he'll come on.
CardinalsMLB.com writer. We'll probably have Katie Wu on at some point. I bumped into her at Warner Warm Up. She was like, yeah, great. Just let me know. So,
Yeah. So we appreciate you
I'll
listening.
come back.
Kyle will be here as
Yes.
always. You can follow me at Jinx3086 right there on your screen. Kyle J Peach and
J Brown
J Brown
116.
116. Follow us on Twitter at That's a Winter Pod.
Facebook. Same.
Facebook at That's a Winter Podcast, I do believe.
Yes.
And That's a Winter Podcast on YouTube. Follow us all those places. We appreciate it. I am Ryan Jenkins. That's Kyle Peach. And that's Josh Brown. Thank you all. See you.
Sugar from the belt to the plate. A swing and a miss, and that's the winner. That's the winner. A World Series winner for the Cardinals. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard. Go crazy. Swinging a long one into left field. Adios, goodbye, and maybe that's the winner. A 3-run homer by Clark, and the Cardinals lead by the score of 7-5, and they may go to the World Series on that one, folks.
What a team. What a ride. The Cardinals are world champs in 2011.